Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where we talk all things DVDs and Blu-rays and the show in general when it comes to Doctor Who. And we're going to be doing a little bit of that today because we will later on be discussing the announcement of the Season 25 Blu-ray, announced a couple of weeks ago with lots of new special features to come. So we'll give you guys some brief thoughts on Season 25 as a whole and also what is to come from that box set releasing in October. But of course, from the title of this podcast, you can see our main focus is kind of rounding off Season 1. It's been about 3 weeks now since Season 1 ended, and it felt like a good time to just look back on the season as a whole and kind of discuss whether we really liked it or not, whether it was really any good or not. Just kind of nail down our kind of final feelings on this season before we kind of let it go until, I don't know, 10 years time when we do a retrospective because they've released another Blu-ray or something. I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but this feels like the moment to kind of nail it on the head. So, Ryan, I will come to you first. Season 1 of Doctor Who, it was meant to be the kind of relaunch of the show. We've had the Jodie Whittaker era that wasn't definitely not the most popular era of the show, quite divisive. The return of RTD. We had the 60th anniversary specials, which were always a bit of a kind of stopgap just to kind of get us into the new era. And then we had the 8-episode Season 1. So was Season 1 what you were hoping it was going to be?
That's a bit of a tricky question. I mean,
that's why I asked it.
It was going. There is a part of me that was hoping it was going to really, breathe new life into the show. After what happened with the Jodie Whittaker era, I was hoping this would, really get me, just blown away, kind of like how it was with Series 1 and especially with Series 5. I was hoping it would be sort of in that sort of, it would blow me away. And while there have been some instances where it did feel like that for me, most of the time, it's a bit like, it's kind of like how, because I remember when I did my review of the finale, I'd said it was good but not great. Mm-hmm. That kind of perfectly sums up the whole season.
Yeah. Okay.
It's definitely better. I will say it's definitely better than what we've had before with the Jodie Whittaker era in terms of writing and directing. It's definitely leagues ahead, or doesn't quite reach the absolute peak of what we had before. It's the highs of RTD1 and the highs of Stephen Moffat. I feel like, looking at my rankings for all of modern Doctor Who, because I've got a list here, it perfectly sits right bang in the middle. It perfectly sits, and I think that's kind of perfectly summary of how I feel, honestly. I mean, when it started off, very quickly, it didn't completely blow me away like Church of Ruby Road and Space Babies. It wasn't like it wasn't quite like the big grand relaunch of the show that I thought it was going to be. And then there was a good stretch in the middle where it was actually pretty solid, from Devil's Court to even to some extent Rogue. I thought it was kind of like a good solid run in the middle. And then when we got to the finale, despite promising build-up and some stuff in the party that was really well done, I felt like the resolutions to everything just didn't really live up to that. And it's funny because it's been 3 weeks and it hasn't really stuck with me. And it's strange because, I mean, some of the stories have stuck with me, but as a season as a whole, it hasn't really stuck with me, like, to some extent, like Series 4, Series 5, the entire Peter Capaldi era. Like, those are the seasons that really, like, stay with me for weeks after. I can memorize everything and just, get really excited about what's coming next or reliving that all over again. But whereas this season, while it is a solid season, I said there's a good stretch in the middle that's good, it hasn't really quite stuck with me the same way, and I don't know why that is. If it's to do with the show, if it's the season, if it's to do with me, or if it's because I'm kind of feel like I'm kind of at a crossroads almost. It's strange because when you look at the stories, I would, like I said, loads of times there hasn't been a story that's been below a 6 out of 10, and I still stand by that. There hasn't been like any story that's been below a 6, so that makes it the first modern Doctor for me that hasn't got like below that score, which is impressive enough. But I think when you start to look deep into it, I think there's some problems that kind of within like the structure of the season itself and how they've chosen to format it. I think that's kind of holding it back from being the great relaunch that perhaps it could have been. It's strange.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a real struggle because I have been watching Doctor Who since 2005. So for all those early seasons, I have such a like nostalgia for it that I feel like I'm realizing more and more as more seasons go by that like nothing can ever quite live up to that, because that's like my childhood memory and childhood comfort of it. And I think that's like something I'm kind of gradually almost coming to terms with, is the fact that like I'm going to like future seasons of Doctor Who, but it's going to kind of be in a different way to that, like, you know, your childhood, the ones you've watched for years and years, and you just, you know, you just love them and have a warm feeling about them. And I think that's a real challenge, because we all thought like, you know, RTD's coming all over again. It's going to be amazing. We're going to love it. But I feel like the majority of people didn't love it. Like, I would say generally the fandom liked it, but I don't know. I mean, Charlie, did you love season 1?
No. No. I liked it. I think overall, if I were to rate the whole season out of 10, which is a very hard thing to do, 7. Maybe 7.5, something like that. Yeah. It's 6th in my overall season ranking of New Who, which is fairly high. But like on the whole, like in all of Doctor Who, I just prefer Classic Who to New Who. Like if you include Classic Who in that, it's 23rd out of 40. So like it's significantly dropped down. Like there's, I mean, I guess that means there's like 17 classic Doctor Who seasons, I think, that are better than it, and I do. Yeah. I didn't think it was the worst season. Like it could have been a lot worse. I think I was thinking about this because I've been watching some Classic Who recently, as I do when there's no New Who on.
Yeah, same here.
I think it's got what I call season 21-itis, where the first story and the last story are both really, really bad. Like Space Babies and The Devil's Cord, I wasn't a massive fan of either. Looking back, I've rewatched it since Empire of Death came out, and obviously the finale speaks for itself. And the same with season 21. You've got Warriors of the Deep at the start, which we've talked about in great.
Oh yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah.
We did a whole podcast just being horrible to Warriors of the Deep. And then obviously we've got Twin Dilemma at the end, which people sort of forget is part of season 21, but it is.
Yeah, it's true.
But the stuff in the middle actually is really quite good. But people just sort of think of it as a really bad season because the start and the end are both pretty bad.
Yeah. Like
if we look in the middle of season 21, you've got The Awakening, you've got Resurrection of the Daleks, Caves of Androzani. I kind of liked Frontios. Planet of Fire's alright, I guess. Like it's not amazing, but that's an exception. And same with the middle of like you've got a fantastic 5-episode run of Boom, 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, Rogue, and Legend of Ruby Sunday, which the last one is part of the finale, but that's still such a strong run of episodes. And I've not been that consistently excited about Doctor Who since. I mean, the first Doctor Who story I watched in transmission was World Enough in Time, knowing nothing about the John Sim reveal. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah, you did well. You made a good choice there. Yeah. So this is the most excited I've been for Doctor Who, like, in that 5-episode run since 2017. So I've got to give it some credit for that, like that middle stretch of episodes is so good. And I mean, I wasn't a massive fan of Devil's Cord. As you guys know from our podcast on it, I didn't really like it that much. But I thought it's still such a solid run, really. Like Boom to Rogue and, I guess Legend of Ruby Sunday. It's also solid, and Shooty's a good Doctor. Like, he's better than Jodie, I think. It's fair to say, like, better written.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, if we go just back, one Doctor each time, he's not better than Peter Capaldi, but
Yeah.
still, I think Ncuti and Millie are great, even if they lack like development. It's not objectively the best season of all time, but
No.
it's entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
After each episode, except for Empire of Death, maybe, I thought this wasn't a waste of 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But for some of Jodie Whittaker's episodes, I really did think that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Jodie Whittaker's episodes again in the future, but yes, there are.
That's it. I mean, it's just sort of natural instinct to compare it to the previous era directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the last full season we had of Doctor Who was Flux, which I think we can all agree season 1 is better than Flux.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it probably is. I think it
Exactly.
probably is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, on the whole, 7 out of 10 season.
Yeah.
It could have been a lot worse. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Exactly. So Bill, season 1, did we almost like, given it was RTD's big first season back, relaunching the show, all of this, did we almost maybe have too high expectations for the season? Because like it was good, as we've kind of established, but we almost like thought and expected Russell with another 10 years of writing experience is going to write the best season the show has ever seen. Did we just have too high expectations?
I think we did, to be honest. Yeah, I think it was kind of, I think because we kind of looked at stuff that Russell done recently, like Years and Years and It's a Sin. And I think we kind of just assumed that, his new Doctor Who era was going to be exactly like that in terms of, kind of not just the issues that it's going to be tackling, but just the general kind of quality of just scripts and everything. Now, I don't know kind of what's happened, but obviously that's not quite what we got. But I don't know, it could be that I don't think it's necessarily that Russell himself has run out of good ideas for Doctor Who, because there have been a number of episodes this season which have shown that he can still have some really good ideas, especially 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, etc. I think it's just whatever is pushing it back. I feel like whatever is the reason for this 8-episode, 45-minute format, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Maybe it's the BBC themselves having budget issues, even with Bad Wolf and Disney helping out. I don't know, but it's still just... It feels like Russell is still kind of doing what he was doing in 2005, which is really great stuff. But obviously, that was when the show was able to have like 13 or 14 episodes a year. And you did get this sense of like, there was enough time to flesh out a new Doctor, a new companion, because you always had that in Russell's era, the first era. You always had it in Stephen Moffat's era, pretty much. And, I feel like that's kind of the problem, is he's still trying to write a 13-episode season, but he's only got 8 or 9, I suppose, if you count the Christmas special episodes. And I think that is the main kind of problem with it, is those two things just don't naturally go well together. And I think, I think Russell, again, he's a great writer, he's a great showrunner, and if nothing else, it's just nice to have a showrunner who's kind of like much more like constantly promoting the show. I'm not saying that Chris Chibnall never did, but Russell T Davies is very much kind of like a kind of almost like a showman, sort of like in terms of how he promotes it all the time and all this, like, and teases the fans even if we get annoyed about it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things he's been saying recently is a little bit annoying, but yes.
But yeah, so I think it's just that something somewhere has just not gone right, and I don't necessarily think it's writing. I think it's just whatever's put them in this situation where they have to do 8 episodes a year. I mean, it's just not working, and I think I think there needs to be, hopefully, I know it's too late for season 2, but hopefully for season 3 onwards, we can kind of, Russell can maybe just adapt his storytelling to fit that format more. Because, I mean, who knows, maybe he'd already written these kind of scripts, not knowing for sure how many episodes he was going to have. You might have expected more, you might have expected a bit less, but it's really difficult because it's just so, like, there was, so as you said, there was so much riding on it, and it's not even just that it's a new era. You've got the Disney Plus international side of it as well, trying to appeal to a new, much wider audience than ever before, really. And what do we get for the first episode? We get Space Babies, which is fine for like a mid-season, like, throwaway episode, but for a season opener, it's just not that solid. I mean, if it wasn't for the Church on Ruby Road, I think 15 and Ruby's introduction would be pretty bad, really, actually. And I think so at least kind of the Christmas special is almost more like the series opener than the actual series opener itself, and that is not a good situation to be in, really.
Yeah. So is the start of season 1 just series 2 of Doctor Who all over again? You've got Christmas Invasion as Church on Ruby Road, then you've got New Earth as the not very good opening episode, and then Tooth and Claw that's kind of okay, like Devil's Court. Then what's the third episode of season 2? Then is it School Reunion? It's a classic. Girl in the Fireplace, another great one. Then the Sidemen two-parter. I mean, it gets a messy there, but I feel like maybe there's a comparison there. But Ryan, I feel like one of the things in this season that was really lacking, we did talk about it, but I feel like it's important to really nail that down, is characters and the relationships between the main characters in this season, because I think some of the best series of Doctor Who that we've had have kind of hinged on that Doctor and companion relationship. It's one of the reasons that I know a lot of us here love series 8, series 9 so much, because of the relationship between the Doctor and Clara. No matter how you feel about how it ends in Hellbent, it's still one of the most well-developed Doctor companion relationships, sort of over 3 seasons, really. And whether you like it or not, the Doctor and Rose is also a pretty developed relationship over those 2 seasons that you get, and then in series 4 as well. The Jodie Whittaker era is one we clearly said was really lacking in that, and that was a real problem with it. So do you think that kind of the lack of episodes, what felt like a lack of focus on that, has just, I don't know, I just kind of almost feel slightly cold towards this season? I don't know quite why. As Charlie, you've said, there's a lot of good episodes in there, but just as a whole, I kind of feel just a little bit cold towards the season. Do you think maybe that lack of deep characters and relationships is one of the reasons why?
Yeah. It's weird because, again, looking at it, I think, again, it's not that it's bad. I think the problem is just, if you look deep at the heart of it, it's definitely the structure of it. I think having it being whittled down to 8 or 9 episodes, including the Christmas special, that's clearly not enough time, especially when you're trying to launch a new Doctor-companion relationship. I mean, if this was it's just, I don't know why they had this to begin with. Why they felt confident they could try and do this in 8 or 9 episodes, because it's clear that it's not well developed enough. Because it's not that the chemistry is bad. I mean, Shooting Gatwa and Millie Gibson are good together, and some of the best scenes of them are together. Like, if you look at Boom, for example, they're brilliant together. It's such a great dynamic, and Devil's Cord, they can be fun, but when you get the final scenes in Empire of Death, where Ruby is leaving the Doctor, and that's the end of, and they're saying goodbye. I should feel emotions there. I should feel emotion, but I didn't really feel that much, because I'm just like, I feel like you two only just got started on this relationship. I haven't really got much time to be with them, and again, the format, I think, just kind of hampered that, because you have the first 3 episodes: Church Ruby Road, Space Babies, Devil's Cord. They are together a good chunk of time. They are together, and also Boom, they're pretty much together. But then you get to 73 yards. 99% of the time, the Doctor's not there at all. It's all just Ruby, and Dot and Bubble hardly there. It's a different issue there. I think it's because of the fact we're focusing on a different character, but we hardly see them together. In Rogue, for most of the time, Ruby's doing her own thing while the Doctor's with Rogue.
Yeah.
Then we get to the finale, and it feels like this should be the moment where we should be really fully invested in their relationship, but I really felt like we haven't got much time.
Yeah.
Because, like, for half the time, they're not really together. It's just like, how can I be invested if the structure of it is hampering it? And I think that's its ultimate problem, is that trying to do it in 9 episodes is just not doable. Because when we look back at the Capaldi era, like, you had, including the Christmas special, we had 13 episodes.
Yeah.
Like in Series 8, Series 9, you definitely got a sense of the relationship between the Doctor and Clara. And Series 8, and I was rewatching Series 8 after this. I was watching a bit of Series 8. And even though, the middle chunk, Caretaker and Kill the Moon, it's not really good. It's really at the bottom. I still feel like it's much better structured, because even though a lot of stories are standalone in that season, they're almost kind of structured like they're quasi two-parters, or feel like they're evolving them a specific way. Like, you have the early beginnings of that relationship, and then the middle, they fall apart, but then come back together, and they and as they in Dark Quarter and Death in Heaven, where it's really put to the test, and then Last Christmas, it finally cements how strong their relationship is. That continues on into Series 9, and then, yes, Hellbent wasn't great. It's not.
I like it.
But even though it's not, as a whole, it's not great, there are definitely moments in there. I still think there are moments in it that make it do feel like a natural conclusion to their story. I do feel like there are moments in it, and that's because we've got plenty of time. We had like 2 full seasons, a lot of stories to kind of fully develop that relationship. And then we get to this, and I know Ruby's coming back in the next season, but I felt like for half of the time we never really got a sense of their dynamic. And I think the structure, the way they decide to, the amount of episodes they decide to have, I think just really hampered this season. I think that's its real Achilles heel almost. It's like, and it's like, after, funny enough, after I'm looking back on it, I just think of the decisions they made and the formatting. I'm just reminded of that quote from Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. It's like, they were so preoccupied thinking whether or not they didn't actually stop to think they should. And that's just how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really interesting for me is, okay, they did an 8 episode season. Like, yes, that's a problem. They also knew they couldn't have Ncuti Gatwa for half of that for various reasons. So again, okay, we have to accept that was, they knew that when they signed him, like, that was just how it was going to be. So we knew we were going to have 2 episodes with less of the Doctor in. Again, annoying, but okay. But then why did they then choose to have episodes like Rogue, which are great but do nothing to progress the Doctor and Ruby's relationship, really? Like, save that for season 2, when you have more episodes to be able to explore the Doctor and Ruby. Like, why do you squeeze that into season 1? And it felt like most of the episodes that we did have of them still wasn't really doing a great job of progressing their relationship and their dynamic. And I think that's what's really lacking. They almost needed to accept the kind of biggest problem along with 8 episodes, which was the lack of Ncuti Gatwa, and say, okay, we've got to approach this differently. In those episodes we can have him properly in, let's really focus on the Doctor and companion, because that's, especially, like, it's always been a thing, but I feel like even more so ever in New Who, it's so kind of pivotal to the show that relationship is strong and well developed, and that you as a audience can buy into that and, you know, get real entertainment out of that. And yeah, I think that's what's really lacking from this season, and it's really just a problem. Sorry.
Got to mention also the fact that, it doesn't help the fact that most of the stories, I mean, even though I'm really applaud them for trying to do more bold and more experimental kind of stories during the middle chunk, having that be the bulk of it in the middle, while not giving enough time for like random fun adventures, I think also kind of is part of that problem, because I think it started in Devil's Cord, and while the story of that is kind of typical Doctor Who fare, the enemy, the threat in Maestro, is so far removed. It's not like your typical villain of the week. Maestro's completely different to that, so that felt like it was something a bit more experimental. Boom was definitely experimental. Doctor stuck on a landmine for 98% of the story. How 99% of the story? How is he going to get out of it? It's all primarily in one location. That felt experimental. 73 yards, very experimental. Whether you liked it or not, I loved it. I thought it was the best story of the season. It was very bold, and it's the same with Dot and Bubble, where you think it's about one thing, but really it's a bold experimental story where our quote-unquote protagonist is actually the true villain of the story, and they were all very bold experimental. We don't really have much time to have the light, fun adventures to kind of help break that up, so to speak. As I feel like the ones that were closest to that were Church on Ruby Road, Space Babies, and Rogue. Those were the only three that kind of felt like your typical fun adventures. It felt like there wasn't enough of those. And again, looking at watching Series 8 again, Robot of Sherwood was a lot of fun. And that's a typical, like, fun. And that does have some good moments that kind of is about the Doctor's character and a little bit of a relationship with Clara. And that's a fun adventure. And again, Series 10, Thin Ice, that's a typical like pseudo-historical story. That was a lot of fun, and that perfectly further explored the Doctor and Bill's relationship. And it's like, I feel like that was also what was missing from here. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is great that Russell is allowing more bolder, more experimental stories. I mean, it shows that he hasn't run out of ideas, and it shows that Stephen Moffat hasn't run out of ideas with Boom.
Oh, indeed.
It needs a bit more than just that. It does need to have those typical fun adventures, not just to kind of add a bit more variety to it, but it can also help to further develop the relationships. I feel like that was what was lacking here.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, Charlie, what do you think? I mean, it's already been filmed, so in many ways, nothing can change. But what do you think needs to change for season 2 of Doctor Who to make it better?
Well, I would say more episodes, but it's too late for that.
Yes.
I just think more, like you guys were saying, regular Doctor Who stories. Like, just give us like a base under siege. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, true.
Like,
so true.
80% of the Patrick Troughton era is just base under siege, base under siege, base under siege, and it's great. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like, I think, on average, in terms of like how much I enjoy the stories, it's probably my favorite era. Like Pertwee's my favorite overall, but Patrick Troughton's stories, it's just banger after banger. Like season 5, it's just constantly amazing, really. So I just say regular Doctor Who stories. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's really weird having all the experimental stuff in season 1. I think 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble should have both been season 2.
Yeah.
And kept all the others in season 1. I think that would have made a lot more sense. But I'm slightly worried though, because so we've got Ruby, and we've also got what's Verida's character? It's been leaked, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, I can't remember her name.
It's like Belinda or something.
Yeah, something like that, isn't it? Yeah.
That's. So we've got season 1, which doesn't have amazing Doctor companion development. And I've got season 2 with a Doctor and 2 companions. Is Russell just biting off more than he can chew by having 2 companions? Like, I know Ruby's not in the whole season, and I can imagine it's just going to be this Belinda in the first half. But
yeah,
I think it's safe to assume they're both going to be in definitely the finale. Like,
yeah,
I think it's just a bit much to have 2 whole companions like that for any number of episodes.
Yeah,
I just hope Russell does regular Doctor Who, because I feel like all these international viewers, who've gotten through Disney Plus, they still don't really know what a standard episode of Doctor Who looks like.
This is it. This is it. I don't think season 1 of Doctor Who is a standard season of Doctor Who, or a season you would really recommend to a new person to watch. Like, I'd say go and watch series 1. Don't start with this. Go and watch Richard Preston. That's the place.
Series 1. I was going to bring up series 1 because it's a case study. Like, series 1 and season 1 is a case study on 2 different ways to reboot a show.
Yeah.
One that worked and one that didn't work as a reboot. I'm not saying season 1's a bad season, but series 1, it's got so much basic Doctor Who, really. End of the World, Unquiet Dead, Aliens of London, World War III, The Long Game, Father's Day. They're all pretty standard Doctor Who, and they're all pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, I left out Dalek, which is, in my opinion, the best of the season, but that's kind of not basic Doctor Who, is it, really? But,
no, it is a bit different.
I mean, it's kind of a base under siege, in a way, but
yeah.
Still, yeah. Like, series 1 has so much just regular Doctor Who episodes, and it's proof that you don't need to be wild and experimental to produce some really good stuff. I mean, the Ninth Doctor and Rose is one of the best duos of all time in Doctor Who, and it's all just fantastic. It's my favourite season of modern Doctor Who. And then you get season 1, which has 8 episodes, no interaction, and it just kind of falls apart. So I feel, bottom line is, just give all these international viewers you've hooked in through Disney Plus some actual Doctor Who, not just weird experimental stuff. Like, I'd like a couple of episodes. Give me another 73 yards, that's fine. But don't make episodes 2 through 6, or 2 through 5, I guess, weird like that, because it just didn't really feel like a whole lot of structure. It's just kind of style over substance in a way. It's just kind of, it doesn't really have an identity as a season.
No, like, that's so true.
If someone says, think about, I don't know, even Series 11, right? I'm not saying Series 11 is better than it, but it does have its own vibe. And if someone says, think of Series 11, it's all kind of the same stuff.
Yeah.
But season 1, I just kind of, where do I even begin? It's just a bit all over the place.
Mishmash of stuff. Yeah,
it's just not really got much of an identity. And I feel like it's as good a jumping point onto New Who as, like, Trial of a Time Lord is to Classic Who. It's just not at all. It's meant to be a big reboot, and in the very first episode of RTD2, you get all this stuff with Donna, and there's a character from a comic in 1980, and you've got to know all the stuff about the memory and the Dr. Donna. Then you get the Celestial Toymaker, and you get the Celestial Toymaker's child. It's just...
And
Sutek,
It's
Sutek, exactly. So it's a good season, I guess, but it's just not a good reboot, and I want season 2 to kind of fix that and actually be a reboot of Doctor Who, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've just remembered, you were saying about this season not having much of an identity. When you look at Stephen Moffat's run, and even though I'm not the biggest fan of Series 6 and 7, definitely, I think there's definitely some of the weaker seasons of Modern Who, at least each one has their own identity to them. You know what they're about. Series 5, it's like the grand mythological fairy tale. Series 6, the story arc heavy epic. Series 7, well, blockbuster of the week.
Yeah.
Series 8, the dark season with a new morally ambiguous Doctor.
Yeah.
Series 9, the season of multi-parters and all that. And Series 10, as he calls it, his reboot, so to speak. So, and again, even though, not the biggest fan of Series 6 and 7, I applaud him for trying to give each of these seasons their own sort of unique flavour, their own unique identity. And even when you look at RTD's first era, I did feel like there was some, even though they did all feel kind of unified, there was at least a bit of a flavour to each of these seasons, which I didn't really got the sense of that here. And it's strange. When I look back at this season, I'm like, it doesn't really have that much of a singular identity I can pinpoint towards. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a very odd feeling. And I think it's interesting sort of picking up on that idea of it being a reboot. And it almost feels like, well, the whole of RTD2 almost doesn't know what it wants to be. Like, Russell keeps telling us this is like a brand new era, reboot of the show, essentially. season 1 because it's all brand new and all this. But then, as you say, Charlie, he does Donna and the Celestial Toymaker and Sutek and all this. So I almost want him to Russell to decide what he actually wants to do. Like, I don't know what you feel about this, Bill, but I feel like we're at the point in the history of the show, and you could see from the viewing figures and the general reception of this series that I don't think it was suddenly pulling in 5 million more people, new people that weren't watching it during Jodie's era or before or whatever. Should Russell just kind of lean into the fandom side of it and just start writing it, not kind of like, not full on fan service every week, but like write it almost with the fans in mind rather than the theoretical 10-year-old child who's never watched Doctor Who before? Because I just doesn't really feel like Doctor Who is doing that anymore. Like it's got its audience, and yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think he should do?
I think I don't know, because it's kind of like it depends on how much you want it to lean into the fandom aspects, because as you say, you don't want it to just be fan service every single episode. Like, here's Daleks, here's Cybermen, here's the Zarbi or whatever. It's you don't want that for every single episode, even for like a short run, like 8 episodes. You don't want that. But I feel like he does need to pick some kind of identity for his new era, because it's really strange looking back on it, because he did this so well with his first era, because it was literally like, as Charlie was saying, like series 1 is the best series of the new era, basically. And it's because it basically, they kind of went into it thinking, well, let's try and reboot, well, kind of do a soft reboot of Doctor Who, as it were. But let's kind of go into a mindset of, well, if we don't get picked up for a second series, let's still at least try and make it as good, as impactful, as dramatic as possible. And so that's why I think it worked so well. And I'm really surprised that Russell didn't do at least kind of more of a soft reboot with this new era, because it's just, it's kind of like, sometimes it kind of is a bit like that, but then you've still kind of got stuff lingering from not just the 60th specials, but also like the Chris Chibnall era, for example, with The Timeless Child and the Flux, and how that has an impact on the Doctor. I mean, that's I'm glad to see it, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like, is that a great way to introduce a whole new international audience to your show? Is to then, we'll reference something that most people in the world can't even access at the minute because it's not on Disney Plus. So
exactly, that's it. That's the problem.
Yeah, I feel like he does need to just figure out, am I going to do a soft reboot? If I'm not going to do a soft reboot, then do I lean more into just kind of not appeasing, but just kind of like treating the existing fans to stuff? And then if newer viewers for some reason end up liking that, then that's also like an extra bonus. But it's just, it's the fact he just can't seem to choose between the two of like what he should do. And it's just so strange, because if you look at his first era, not even just series 1, but every single series in that first era was just completely got it right. And that showed in like the viewing figures. And obviously, like, that's near 20 years ago now, viewing habits have changed anyway, but even so, it was still, Doctor Who back then was big, kind of making lots of money, really. You had like all the merchandise coming out and all this lot. And I don't know, I think maybe we were kind of expecting too much in terms of like hoping for that kind of thing to come back, because maybe it's just something which just can't easily be replicated. It's like there's only been a few times in the show's history when it's been like that. It's only really been the 2000s up till, I'd say, probably 50th anniversary. And then the 1970s pretty much was like when Doctor Who was at its peak, with not just fans, but just the general audience. And the fact that that's only really happened twice in its whole history means that it's not something you can just easily replicate. And no matter how many times you go, oh, well, try and copy a bit of series 1 or a bit of series 4, whatever, it's not always going to work like that. But it's really strange what he's done. Not necessarily in a bad way, but not necessarily in a good way either. It's just it's such a weird thing to be in, because it's like 80% of this season has felt really good. I'd say like 6 out of 8 episodes. That's a pretty good kind of streak. So I'd definitely say I'd rank it kind of. I think I'd put it like I've literally been doing the list earlier on. I'd rank it like 7th or 8th out of whole New Who, which is kind of not that bad. It's kind of like it's getting there. It's getting towards like the top few, because more than anything, because of just that hit rate of just 6 out of 8 episodes being really good. It's just, or even like 7 out of 9 with the Christmas special being really good. It's then just the beginning and the ending, which just pants, which is just really, it's just a shame, really.
Just destroyed it a little bit. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I think they just need to like, the show ultimately is 20 years old. Like, in the eyes of the general public, this mysterious entity, Doctor Who, is 20 years old, has been on TV forever, and no matter whether you're going to brand it season 1, no matter if the show's off for a year or 2 and you pretend this is a new start, to them it's still a 20-year-old show, and they know how it goes, and you're not going to be one back, in a sense. So it sort of, if it's going to truly be people who are completely new to the show, not people who are going to come back, because if they got bored after David Tennant, or got bored after Stephen Moffat, or got bored after Jodie Whittaker, they're not going to come back anymore. Like, we've been going too long for that, I think.
I think if you want the general public to treat it as a complete reboot, I think this has proved you need to wait 16 years.
That's it.
So
exactly.
In 2040, we get another season 1.
Yes.
All sorted.
Yeah, I think that is the truth. I think you can't reboot a show without taking it off the air for at least 10 years, because it's got to feel like this is fresh, this is new. And if you wait a year, that's never going to happen. So yeah, I just feel like then there won't be, but I feel like there should just be a shift more towards, this is the continuing adventures of the Doctor and companion in a long-running TV show, not pretending that this is somehow a new program to the world. Like, certainly the Disney Plus kind of angle, the trailers, the promotion of it gives you that vibe that, this is this brand new thing, when it isn't. I'm sorry, there's been 800 and something episodes before, and that's amazing, but let's stop pretending that season 1 should be called season 1. It's series 14 of Doctor Who. That's what this really is. And I know we've all persevered with calling it season 1, but let's be real, when you go to Wikipedia, it's series 14, and that is what this is.
I think this is just season 40.
I mean, we could do that, but then, I mean, the problem is every other season of series of New Who I know is its series number. Like, I couldn't immediately go series 8 is what, season 34 or something? Season 34?
Yeah.
Okay, I do know it. Great, there we go. Shall we just start doing that and just really annoy all the listeners by constantly referring to the series just by their overall season number, just to try and make it as confusing as possible. So, Ryan, one question I did want to ask. Like, we've said that in general there's a lot of good episodes in this season, and I feel like we've probably been a little bit negative about it, but ultimately we've said there's a really good chunk of episodes in the middle that are really good. We really like the Doctor, we really like the companion. Overall, there's some real good stuff in there. In your ranking, in your opinion, does season 1 top any of RTD's original series?
No.
There we go.
Go through my ranking really quick of all the modern Doctor Who seasons.
You've got it up.
Yeah. Do you want me to go from best to worst or worst to best?
Worst to best. Hit us quickly.
Okay, worst to best. Oh, this is really tricky. Bottom place, Series 13 Flux, and 12, Series 11. I was really struggling which one was worse, but that's just really how I feel, depending on the day. 11, Series 12. 10, Series 7. 9, Series 6. 8, Series 2. Number 7th place is this. 6 is Series 3. I think Series 3 is, looking back, is definitely a much better season. 5, oh, wait a minute. Did I miss this? Oh, yeah. I think I missed out 14. So I think it's because
That's all right.
Season 1 and all that. Sorry, number 8 is this season. Number 7, series 3. 6,
Yeah.
series 8.
Yeah.
Number 5, series 10. 4, series 1. And these top 4 are like the pinnacle for me.
Mhm.
This top 4, it can be interchangeable for me any day of the week. Number 4, series 1. 3, series 4. 2, series 5, and 1, series 9.
Yeah.
I think those top 4 are like
choice. Yeah.
interchangeable for me. Those top 4.
I think 9 over 10 is really interesting to me.
I would take 9 over 10 any day. Personally,
9 does have my favourite Doctor Who story of all time, to be fair. But I just think it's got too many episodes I just don't think are very good.
It's only got one for me. Sleep No More is the only one I don't like. So, you know.
The More's the odd stuff. I mean, I love Heaven Sent, and I absolutely adore The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar. For me, that was the story that made me put 12th Doctor alongside Tom Baker as my favourite Doctor of all time. I absolutely love it. And I think the other 2 parts are good. And Husband's a River Song, Girl Died, Woman Who Lived. I think it's really Sleep No More that's the only bad one out of it. But then again, I feel like a lot of stories, there's at least, even the good ones, there's only like one bad story out of them. Really, like series 1, there's like, I think it's like The Long Game is like the only really bad one. Series 4, The Doctor's Daughter. I think it depends. As I said, the top 4 are really interchangeable for me. Like, who knows? Next week it could be series 1 that's the best season of modern Doctor Who for me, or it could be series 4 or 5. I mean, I think those 4 are the gold standard of modern Doctor Who, with the other 2 seasons of Peter Capaldi a close second after that.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good.
I mean,
So yeah,
mine's a little different. We might as well just so I've got 10 ahead of 9, and there's 5 seasons in between. So I've got Flux and Last, then 11, then 12, then 6, 7, 2, 9, 8, 14. So in 6th, then 3, 4, 5, 10, 1.
Okay. Yeah.
10.
So I would be pretty similar. I would just swap 10 and 9 around, I think.
Yeah.
For me, I would. Yeah, pretty similar.
Yeah, I do think the only RTD1 series that this beats is 2, because I think it's just got too many bad ones. Again, you know, you've got Love and Monsters, Fear Her, Idiot's Lantern, New Earth, Tooth and Claw. But yes, I've got it in 6th because it's like you were saying, Bill. The hit rate is just too much. There's too many episodes that I watch, and I think that was really good. So I really don't have the heart to put it any lower, because it is just, there are so many I like.
Yeah, exactly. No, that makes absolute sense. Well, Bill, we'll come to you first for our kind of, to finish off this bit. We'll do our episode rankings of season 1, because I feel like it's a good place to end. So if you've got your ranking, let's go from worst to best. If you want to include Church and Ruby Road, you can. You can hit us with your season 1 episode rankings.
Could I do the series first? Because so I'd go series 11 bottom.
Yeah.
Series 13 would be 13th place.
Yeah. Okay.
Series 7, series 6. This is going to be a bit awkward, but series 9, I'm afraid.
Wait, have you put series 12 ahead of series 9?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like series 12, and I was pleased with it for a minute, and then you said series 9.
Yeah. I don't know. It didn't gel with me at the time, I will be honest, but I don't know. Maybe I need to rewatch it.
A sort of series 9 / Hellbent debate episode at some point, I feel like, because that's a real, point of contention, I think, between us all. So at some point in the future, we'll do that.
And then series 2.
Okay.
And then season 1 or series 14.
Yeah.
Then series 12.
Wow.
Then series 8. Then series 3, series 10.
Yeah.
Series 5, series 4, and then series 1 is at the very top.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Top 3, absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
I think all of us have got 1, 10, 4, and 5 way up there.
Yes. Yeah.
So they are just that good.
Absolutely. And then it's just where you put Series 9, basically.
Very
nice.
And then for season 1, I haven't included. Actually, if I did include Church on Ruby Road, I'll say, I'm going to include Church on Ruby Road. So I'm going to go with Space Babies at the absolute bottom.
Yep.
Because, it's terrible. Empire of Death is then right behind it because, again, it's just, it's what I was saying, just not a great start, not a great end.
Mm-hmm.
Then The Devil's Chord, I would say, I do kind of mostly enjoy it, but it's just, I think maybe in terms of the musical number, in terms of, I don't hate it, but I kind of feel like it doesn't make much sense where it is in the episode. I feel like it would have been better a bit earlier or something like that. Then I'd put Church on Ruby Road. I feel like that is, as I say, a much better introduction for 15 and Ruby than Space Babies was. Then I'd put The Legend of Ruby Sunday. I know it's literally just build up for the finale, but it does a really good job of it. So yeah, I'd put it pretty high actually. Dot and Bubble, 73 yards. Now this might be a bit strange, but I have to go off pure vibes. Rogue.
Okay.
Because I just genuinely just enjoyed how much of a romp it was, even if it's not, it's not like it's a fairly sort of standard Doctor Who episode, really, when you get down to it. But I feel like the fact that we didn't have much of that this season, when we did finally get it with Rogue, meant that, it was kind of a breath of fresh air almost from all this experimental kind of stuff going on. Even though I enjoyed it, it was still like I needed a kind of a bit of a breather, I suppose, from it all. And then at the very top, no surprise, Boom.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. It's I can't massively disagree. I mean, I'll share my list next, and you can disagree with me a little bit, but because it's not quite the same. With a familiar start though, Space Babies at the bottom, obviously. Emperor of Death second from the bottom, obviously. Then I've gone Church on Ruby Road because I like it, but I don't think it's great. It's just kind of solidly okay, decent Christmas special and episode 1 of the season, really. So then that. Then Devil's Chord, because I think it's quite good, but it's not spectacular. It's fun. I like the kind of experimental vibe of it, and everything's a bit different, but I don't think it's, again, anything amazing. Then Rogue, which I like, but as you say, Bill, it's kind of more standard Doctor Who. I know we've been saying it needs more standard Doctor Who, but also I don't think that this was like a great episode of Doctor Who. It was just kind of a fine episode of Doctor Who. It was almost one of those, it was almost an Eaters of Light situation where I'm waiting for it to go by so we can get to the first part of the finale. I know that's really bad, and it's only 8 episodes, but it was that episode that felt a little bit like that to me. So then I've gone for Legend of Ruby Sunday because I really liked it at the time. I feel like when I kind of go back in 6 months' time and rewatch this season, I might have a different opinion and put that one a bit lower because I feel like it is very like heavily reliant on the reveals of it. But it's at number 4 for now. Then number 3, I've gone for Boom. Shock, because I really like it, but I don't know. I just the vibes are not perfect for me. Like, it's really good. I love the Moffaty dialogue of it all, but I think I don't know. I just don't think it's the best episode I've ever watched or absolutely great. Then at number 2, I've gone for 73 Yards, which I really like the experimental vibe of it. And Ruby's obviously brilliant throughout that episode. Millie's amazing. And I don't know, it's just really clever, even if it is a little bit frustrating, the lack of explanation. I do still really like the kind of depth of that episode. I think that's really good. And then Dot and Bubble, number 1, the whole idea behind it, the message of it all, it's just so clever. I love the whole dystopian world that it's set on, and the whole message that's behind the whole story as well is so good. I think it's so... I think it's the best thing that Russell did in season 1 was the way he wrote that episode. I think it was so good. So that's my ranking. Charlie.
That is an interesting ranking, Elliot. I'm going to annoy some of you here. But here we go. Last place, 8th. I mean, I've ranked the finale together
Okay.
because I don't feel like I can separate Legend of Ruby Sunday. It's just it's the same story, you know. Last place, 8th, Legend of Ruby Sunday, Empire of Death. I've given a 4.5. After it just gets worse and worse with each rewatch, and the more I think about it, the more I hate it. It's really bad.
And people had to watch that in cinemas back to back.
Yeah, no, the first time when I watched it, because I was one of those, I kind of liked it. I thought, you know what, that's all right. I didn't think about it too much. I just kind of, yeah, whatever. But looking back, every time, I must have watched it four times now.
Yeah.
The second episode specifically 4 times. The first one 5.
Okay.
It just gets worse. It's not it. I've got Devil's Cord in 7th. At 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I don't know. It just wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be a Beatles episode, and they're in it for 5 minutes, and we get it's actually the toy maker's child. It just no. I don't think the resolution's very good. It's just a bit.
Yeah.
It's just a bit too much. 6th place, I've got Space Babies with a 6.5 out of 10. I do think it's better than Devil's Cord. I don't hate it as much as you guys. But yeah, I don't love it. It's definitely gone down since my first watch. Then I've got Church on Ruby Road with a 7. It's just kind of there. It's a solid introduction, but it just exists really. It's the one I thought the least about since it came out. I don't really think about this one. 4th place, I've got Dot and Bubble. Your favourite, Elliot? It's not bad. I've given it an 8. It's just kind of the top 3 are better than it. More than it not being good. It's really good. But I think it could have done with another 10 minutes, like lots of them.
Yeah.
Then I've got Boom in 3rd, like you, Elliot.
Okay.
Like you, I think it feels, you can tell it's in a studio too much, and it's kind of just doesn't feel like a world.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I know people obviously hate on classic Doctor Who for using quarries. I don't think a quarry could have hurt it.
No, I think it would have been better. And I know why they didn't do it, because it's probably going to rain and be awful. But I think this episode would have been better if it was actually on location. Yeah,
it just doesn't feel
real.
Enough. It feels more like a play than. Yeah. It is really good though. It's well written. You know, it's Stephen Moffat. Yeah. 2nd place, I've got Rogue with a 9. I just love it. I just think it's such a fun episode to watch. It doesn't get old. I think the dynamic between the main two is fantastic. And in 1st place, 73 Yards. It's just great. It's just experimental. It's weird. Everyone has their own interpretation. It's just, it's the one that stuck with me the most. And it's the most I've thought about Doctor Who in a long, long time. And I've got to give it credit for that. So that's the ranking. Very nice.
Very nice. Ryan, round us off with your ranking.
Like Charlie, I put the 2-part finale together. And like I always think 2 parts are really one story. Bottom, Space Babies.
Yeah.
My niece loves it, and that's great. And it's fine, but it didn't really stuck with me. It's just a very average story. 7, I've actually gone for Church on Ruby Road, just above that. As the proper introductory episode to the Doctor and Ruby, it's fine, but it didn't really stick with me. Like Charlie said, it didn't really stick with me, like in the same way that Rose or something like The 11th Hour or Deep Breath did for me. Like, it as an introductory, so it didn't really leave that much of an impact. 6th, I've gone for the 2-part finale, The Legend of Ruby Sunday and the Empire of Death. Great moments. Loved seeing Sutek again. And I will say that there is still some stuff in the Empire of Death that is good, but I think it's just that 10 minutes. I think that 10 minutes when they just suddenly get out that whistle and, drag.
As soon as the whistle appears, it's all over, basically. It's all a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. The moment that starts to the very end of the explanation about Ruby's actual mum, those 10 minutes, the resolution of those 10-15 minutes is really bad. And it's a shame because those 10-15 minutes threaten to drag the whole thing down, and it's a shame, really. And it's annoying because there is a lot of really good build-up and tension, and Sutek, it's great seeing him again, but the resolution sucks. It just really lets the whole thing down. And yeah, it's such a shame. I think it's easily Russell's weakest finale to date. Number 5, Rogue. It's definitely enjoyable. It's definitely a vibe story. Shooting Gatwa and Jonathan Groff are a great pairing. And it is a lot of fun. I just didn't really get that much out of the villains, and it's just annoying that the Doctor and Ruby are separated again for the feels like the 3rd time in a row after that. But it is still a fun story. Number 4, I've gone for Devil's Cord. I mean, yes, I put that number 4. It was a toss-up between Devil's Cord and Rogue, but I think Devil's Cord is slightly above it because I think I just enjoy the villain more. I think Maestro's a great villain. I think Maestro's the best newly created modern Doctor Who adversary probably since the Silence. I would go as far as saying I think Maestro's such a great adversary, and I think that's what helped boost the story up for me. And there was a lot of great moments, but yeah, it's just a shame that the resolution has kind of felt a little bit too rushed, and the musical number afterwards felt a bit out of nowhere and sudden at the end. It's just a bit, it kind of like the finale. The resolution is not that great, but I felt like the build up to that is much stronger. And I think, again, the Maestro such a great adversary that I think that's the reason why it's. And I also I love the period set. I think I wondered if Devil's Cord is probably the best looking story of this season for me. I think it's visually, I think it's the best looking story out of all of them for me. I think it's because of the setting, the 60s setting. And I think the setting and Maestro being a good villain is what propped up to number 4. And then we get to the top 3, and these 3 were difficult for me. Number 3, I've gone for Dot and Bubble. I think Dot and Bubble is a great story. I think it's such a bold episode to have a story where, as I said before, your quote-unquote protagonist is actually the real true villain of the story. And it's such a brilliant way of how it's all handled, like the theming, the messaging, all of it. It's so cleverly detailed and interlaced throughout. It's such a brilliantly constructed story that just it keeps amazing me more and more. I watch it. It's such a damn good story. Number 2, Boom. Yes, the studio bound setting did dampen it a little bit, and it would have been much better if it was filmed on actual location, but it still didn't detract from great performances. Shooting Gatwa's best performance out of the entire season easily is in this story. Brilliant use of tension throughout. The tension of this story is just impeccable, and just goes to show that Stephen Moffat still got it when crafting this type of story. And Barbara DeSethu was brilliant in it, and it has me more excited to see what she's going to bring in the next season. And I also think Millie Gibson is also really solid in this story as well. And I think it's such a good character piece. That's the thing that makes Boom stand out most. But it couldn't quite make number 1 because my number 1, no surprise, 73 yards.
There you go.
In agreement on that. On me. I said at the time, 73 yards was an experience that I've had and will probably never have again. And I still feel that way even after watching it. The more I rewatch it, the more new things I discover in it. Pardon me. The more fascinating details I can find within it. I just love the vibe of it, the atmosphere of it. Millie Gibson is amazing. She's absolutely phenomenal throughout, and I still can't forget the first time I watched it. After it finished, I was just an hour afterwards. I was just pacing to myself, just thinking about what I've watched, and I never had that experience. Rarely had that with a Doctor Who story. And it's such a unique experience that, as I said, I will probably never have again. It's so amazing. It's left me virtually speechless, and for that reason alone, that's why it's my number one.
Yeah. No, I can certainly see that, and I think what's most funny is, I'm not sure if we said this or not, but when we heard that Stephen Moffat was writing an episode of Doctor Who for this season, I think we all would have said that will be the best episode of the season, and yet only one of the four of us has picked it as the best episode of the season. So there you go. You see, Russell, as much as we've criticised a lot of stuff that he's done, he can also surprise us with some really good episodes of Doctor Who. So that feels a good point to end our discussion on season 1. But of course, we wanted to just briefly touch on season 25 of Doctor Who. A new Blu-ray box set has been announced of it, season 25, of course, being the penultimate season of Classic Who, featuring Remembrance of the Daleks, the Happiness Patrol, Silver Nemesis, easy for me to say, and The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. And of course, the Blu-ray has loads of new special features and things. We've got a load of Behind the Sofas, In Conversations. We've got 3 In Conversations on this box set, with one with Sophie Aldred, Andrew Cartmel, and one of the directors, Chris Clough, who I feel like gets a whole load of flack. So I'm really interested to see what he has to say. But maybe they just realise, oh no, we haven't got any more seasons of Sylvester. We better try and squeeze all these in. And then we've got, various other. I'm sure it's going to be a really interesting feature about Dursley McLinden, who plays Mike in Remembrance of the Daleks. We've got an old documentary from the 80s called The Making of Doctor Who, which is going to be quite interesting, I think. Loads of extended and special edition versions of stories. Well, it's technically the second. I don't know. Has anybody watched the first Doctor Who escape room thing that was on the Celestial Toymaker Blu-ray? Has anybody seen that yet?
I've seen a bit of it, but
is it any good?
Yeah, didn't really felt the motivation to carry on, really.
Because I thought it was apparently it's quite long. It's like an hour and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. For some reason, I started it, but never really finished it. It just never really grabbed me.
Yeah, because we've got another one to get excited about. Seventh Doctor one with Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldred, and Bonnie Langford doing Doctor Who Escape Room. So by the time we've all watched Celestial Toymaker and also watched the special features and watched that escape room, then we'll be able to give a great opinion on what's to come from the next one, I'm sure. But at the moment, I don't have very much to say about it. But Charlie, is there anything that you're particularly excited about for this season, whether it's just a story, whether it's a feature? Is there anything that's particularly grabbed you with this release?
Nothing in particular, to be honest. Election, really. It's pretty cool that we have another Doctor's era completed now. We've got 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, which is
just need to fill in 21, and then we're covered from 17 to the end, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And if we get 16 as well, that's like 14 to the end.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We've not got too many left. It's like 9 or something, 8.
Yeah, I think it's not that many. You've got 5 from the 60s, and then you've got seasons 7, 11, 13, 16, and 21. So you've got 10 seasons then left. Yeah.
It's not much. Yeah. I think the Andrew Cartmel one will be quite interesting, because obviously he was the guy who he was the original timeless children Chris Chibnall figure. He was Dr. Thea God and all that. I was kind of, I don't know, he's always struck me as sort of a Chibnall before Chibnall.
Yeah.
Never really got a chance to do his thing, which, I don't know, that'll be quite interesting. But Remembrance of the Daleks, Happiness Patrol are both really great. Silver Nemesis is kind of just Remembrance of the Daleks, but worse, I feel.
It's true, yeah. Silver Nemesis, I mean, the only thing I like, well, not the only thing, one of the main things I like about Silver Nemesis is the fact that it's filmed quite near to where I live, part of it in Arundel, so that's quite cool. I've actually been to the location for part of that, which is a rarity. But yeah, as a story, not too fast.
Yeah, and Greatest Show in the Galaxies, it's all right, I guess.
Yeah.
As a whole, it's not a bad season at all. I think I preferred 26 marginally, but there's not much in it.
Yeah, I'd say season 25 is definitely better than 24. I think we would probably all agree on that.
Yeah.
So Bill, was there anything striking you from that sort of list of new features and things to look forward to?
I was quite taken with the shots we get in the trailer of especially I think it was the new effects for the Happiness Patrol in particular,
Oh
because
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
they've really gone for
that
that, haven't they?
is like such an improvement, because the
Mm.
Happiness Patrol is a great story anyway, but it was so clearly very on a BBC
Yeah.
studio space, and you could tell with it. And whereas with these new effects and everything, I know some people might not like it, but it makes the whole kind of planet feel a lot more immersive, a lot more just real, and it really comes to life, and it's just brilliant. Just seeing like the Helen A like banners around everywhere, and the buildings and everything is just really good. I'm also looking quite forward to the Dursley McLinden documentary. I feel like that's going to be another probably quite emotional one, really, like the Graham Williams one was for season 15. I think that is going to be another real sort of like gut wrencher, but should be really interesting to just kind of like hear about his life and career, and you know how he sadly passed away and everything. So and then with me having never owns the Silver Nemesis VHS, it would be nice to see that making of documentary from 1988. And then the extended version that came with that VHS as well. And then the In Conversation with Chris Clough especially, I think will be quite interesting, because again it's like these people involved in the show's history who kind of are not big names, but still might have some really intriguing or like interesting stuff to say about their time working on it, and I'm sure Chris Clough definitely will. And just in general, just the sheer amount of like extended versions of I think all 4 stories is just it just feels really exciting, even though like I'm not necessarily the person who when I watch The Curse of Fenric, for example, I don't go rushing to watch the extended version. I normally just put on the standard version, but even just to have that option of just being able to look at these classic series stories in a slightly different light would just be really fascinating. And then the Stephen Mansfield interview as well, which I think he worked on some of the effects for season 25. Again, that would be like another behind the scenes kind of story, which might be really interesting, just kind of talking about how they made each effect and everything, and what kind of money they had to spare with at the time. Probably not much, but I think it's just it's probably like it feels like quite a jam-packed sort of Blu-ray. Maybe I think that's mainly because of the new effects and the extended versions and everything. But I feel like it's still there's a lot going on, and I feel like that is kind of deserved, because season 25 is to me one of my favorite classic series seasons. As Charlie was saying, not quite as good as season 26, but it is pretty close between the two, I'd say. So to just have so many different ways of like watching those 4 stories all over again and kind of getting something new out of them would just be really exciting.
100%. I'm certainly looking forward to all of that. Although I feel like they should have done a black and white version of Happiness Patrol, because I know that was one of the original ideas, was for them to broadcast that in black and white. But I think it was probably a little bit too risky to do, to put off the audience or something. But that would have been cool. But Ryan, finally, what story are you going to be going to first when this box set comes out, or will it be straight to a special feature? What do you think is the first thing you're going to watch when you get this box set through the post?
I think I'll just do the stories first, as season 25 is a solid season. As I was saying, I think season 26 is probably the best on it, but I think it's only marginally better. I still think season 25 is a really solid season. I mean, I think Sylvester McCoy's era in general is pretty solid, even if season 24 is easily the weakest. I mean, I do think his last 2 seasons especially are just amazing. And Remembrance of the Daleks, Happiness Patrol, and Greatest Show in the Galaxy, I think are brilliant. They're amazing. Silver Nemesis, I'm a little bit of a
not so good.
I'm a bit of a soft spot for, but it's not great. Funnily enough, I have the original VHS of Silver Nemesis, the extended version with the making of documentary of it, and I think I've still got it somewhere. I need to try and find it and show it on the next podcast. Who knows? It's
Yeah.
and so I have a little bit of a fondness for Silver Nemesis because I own the original VHS, and I think that's probably the reason why. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it is a solid season. With the and I'm definitely excited about the extended versions. I'm so happy that with Silver Nemesis we're finally getting the extended version and that documentary on it, because it was so weird that both that weren't on the original DVD release. That really frustrated me at the time, but I'm happy we're now getting it with the Blu-ray, as well as getting another extended version with the added new effects, new effects for all the stories. I think that's the first thing I'll do, is watch it with the new extended versions with the new effects, just to see how it looks. I think that'll be my first thing. And then I'll be interested in seeing the documentaries. I mean, Andrew Cartmel, I think, is the best script editor of the 80s, easily hands down. I think definitely better than Eric Saywood. I think Eric Saywood's a good writer, but I think he's not a good script editor. And I think Andrew Cartmel, he was the perfect guy to story run to, even if the Cartmel master plan wasn't the director I would have liked it to take down, definitely not. But he's definitely a man with a lot of ideas, and he did bring a lot of great energy to Sylvester McCoy's here. So I can't wait to watch the In Conversation interview with him. The new Sophie Aldred one did take me a little bit by surprise, but I think it's because she returned to Doctor Who twice with both how the Doctor tells the TARDIS that, of course, she's going to have some new stories, so it's obvious that she was going to come back. And I'm also really intrigued about the documentary about Dursley, I think, and I think Russell did mention one time that he was an inspiration for one of the characters in It's a Sin. I think he said that at the time. And so, and of course, he's going to take part in this documentary about Dursley. So I think it is going to be, it's going to be a bit emotional, like how it was with the Graham Williams one, and about a man with seemingly a lot of promise, with an exciting future, but there was just tragically cut too short, too young. And I'm just very. I think that's definitely the documentary I'm going to be watching the first easily. I think that's definitely the one I'm going to go to first. And and just seeing all the other special features that are on it, I think it's definitely great that season 25 is getting this much front loaded with special features, because it deserves it. And I can't believe that after this we only got about 10 seasons left, or 11 if you count the Wilderness years. I'm still hoping we get a Wilderness years. I mean, they got to include it because it is technically part of the Doctor. And I think the main two attractions of that will be both the Paul McGann TV movie as well as Scream of the Schalke. I think Scream of the Schalke has now become a major part of that now that Richard E. Grant because of Rogue. So imagine if both of them, two Doctors together, are on the front cover, both McGann and Richard E. Grant sharing the front cover. That'll be intriguing. And it's kind of maybe also same with season 21 as well, because with Twin Dilemma being the last story, how are they going to sort out the cover? Is it just going to be predominantly Peter Davison, or will they both be shown at the same time?
I think Peter Davison should be the big Doctor. You know, he's the Doctor for that season. But Colin Baker's one of the little figures that you get. You know, at the bottom with the villains. He'll be like down.
He's basically the villain of Twin Dilemma, so you know.
Exactly. And same with like season 4. You know, you get a little Hartnell at the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's the way.
Yeah, maybe that's Wilderness is going to go. Paul McGann will be the predominant Doctor, and then Rich D. Grant there at the bottom with all the other. Who knows what they'll have on? Maybe who knows? Dimensions in Time will get included. The infamous
Curse of Fatal Death.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely more entertaining than Dimensions in Time, which
well, indeed.
actually watched for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
Oh dear, struggles.
Oh my god! If anyone listening watching, please do not watch Dimensions in Time. Trust me, you'll save yourself. Your sanity will be maintained if you don't watch this story because, oh my god! I mean, I should have listened to the warnings beforehand from people telling me not to watch it, and I should have listened.
I mean, I feel like you have to do it at some point in your Doctor Who fandom, but it doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. You know, it's not one of the best things any of us have ever watched.
I think I just want them to get the collection box sets out fast enough so we can get a 25th anniversary of Modern Doctor Who Series 1 collection box set.
Yes.
So in 2030,
yes,
we get Series 1, Christopher Eccleston in conversation.
Yep.
Where he can finally explain why he left.
Yes, he can finally properly slag off Russell T Davies, Jane Tranter, Julie Gardner, Phil Collinson, all of them.
Maybe
that's what we want.
Interview with Keith Boak, because I remember that first filming block that infamously apparently had a lot of problems, a lot of which relates to Keith Boak. Imagine if they got an interview with him.
Yeah, there's so many different options and different potential for what they could do with the season 1 collection or series 1 collection Blu-ray. So I really hope, as you say, I think with 10 or 11 left, they could probably do that in the next 5 years and set us up for 2030, as you say, 25 years on. Feels like the right time. So let's hope to have that. But of course, we have season 25 to look forward to first in October. But that is just about all we've got time for on this edition of the podcast. Next time around, we will be finally discussing the Toymaker, the animated edition of that. So we'll get all our thoughts. We're all gonna have to go and watch that 4 episodes of wacky and weirdness, and I don't really know whether it's going to be any good yet because I haven't watched it. So you can find out in the next edition of the podcast in a few weeks as to our thoughts on all of that. But that's just about it from this edition of the podcast. Remember to check us out on Twitter, easy for me to say, at KerVAM Pod. Check us out on YouTube, on Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. But for now, from me, Bill, Charlie, and Ryan, it's goodbye for now.